tonight's big stories. Controversy grows over Education Secretary Duterte's order to strip classrooms bare and remove all decorations. But does everything really have to go? We'll ask DepEd Undersecretary Michael Poa.
The MMDA begins apprehending motorcycles using EDSA bike lanes despite loud protests from hundreds of thousands of motorbike riders in the city.
And just 4 days to go before the highly anticipated FIBA World Cup. We'll get the inside scoop on final preparations with FIBA World Cup 2023 Deputy Director Erica D later on.
Welcome to the show. I'm Regina.
I'm Gretchen.
And I'm Shawn.
Classes in all public schools is set to kick off next week, but a new memo has left many confused and scrambling. I'm talking about Department Order number 21, which mandates the removal of quote-unquote unnecessary classroom decorations. Here's Vice President Sara Duterte explaining the reason behind this policy.
Dapat yung mga classrooms natin are free from clutter. So alisin yung mga decoration, mga nakadikit, kung ano yung mga nakasulat, lahat yon. Dapat malinis ang ating classrooms so that ang attention ng ating mga estudyante ay nandoon sa teacher, sa harap, or doon sa libro, or sa ginagawa nila.
The question is, ano nga ba yung unnecessary, quote-unquote, at ano nga ba yung pwedeng matira? Well, last week, VP Sara was seen removing her own portrait in a classroom in Davao del Sur. And as we speak, many other schools and teachers have decided to follow and strip clean their classroom walls. The DepEd order called for the removal of unnecessary posters and artworks, and it also said that the classroom walls shall remain bare. Teachers groups have spoken up demanding clarity on the new rule since they believe that for the longest time, visual aids and educational posters have been a staple inside the classroom.
Una-una, para sa mga guro, hindi clutter itong mga materials na ito. Kasi nakakatulong po ito, no, sa ating mga learners. At the same time kasi bilang mga teachers, kailangan na yung consistent na ipaalaala sa mga bata yung mga basic na kailangan nilang matutunan.
Hindi naman tayo na-consult, no, tungkol dito, no. Most of the time, no, kapag merong mga, kasi parang biglaan ito, no, we have to acknowledge, no, what are the unnecessary decorations, no, and what are the necessary.
The Vice President also did mention that the national heroes and our past presidents won't mind if the learners focus on their classroom sessions
Instead of the photos of our past president.
Kaya nga, so
that
yun
I can
yung
understand. That I can understand.
Pero minsan
natukoy.
kasi, di ba, parang yung mga teachers, they like really put an effort into decorating classrooms. Nakailang sa yung mga ibalik eskwela, minsan sarili nilang sikap yun, sariling bili yung mga art materials, and they try to dress it up.
As well. Yeah.
No,
They pay for it out of their own
I did
pocket.
feel sad seeing photos of teachers taking down yung mga alphabet. Yung capital J, then small J, tapos may fruit sa ilalim.
Kunwari,
isa nila tinatanggal.
I mean, kunyari A, capital A, small A, tapos may apple.
Yeah, we grew up with those photos and posters, right?
Tsaka yung pang-height, alam mo yun, yung multiplication table.
There's a lot.
It's not just us, right? Social media is also all fired up with reactions, but is there actual academic basis to this rule? Okay. Well, we found a 2022 study published on the Cognitive Science Journal, and this study examines how visual cues inside the classroom affect young children's attention spans. The study suggests that there is basis for a less cluttered approach to classroom settings. The article referenced the minimalist Montessori method and explained that heavily decorated classrooms do have a somewhat negative effect on a learner's ability to focus. But this does not mean that you should completely strip the classrooms bare. The study calls for, quote, purposeful displays and the need to pursue evidence-based research on classroom design that will engage students further.
Right. Well, to help us make sense of this, we have with us in the studio none other than DepEd Undersecretary and Spokesperson Michael Poa. USEC Mike, thank you so much for coming all the way here. We know you're super busy.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a holiday today, so we were
Oh
finally
yes,
able
that's
to get him to
true.
come.
That's
Okay lang,
that's
okay
how
lang.
it
Wala namang
happened.
holiday sa
Kaya
government
pala.
ko.
Yeah, that's true.
First things first. What is the basis for DepEd Order 21?
Well, let's put it in context. No? Pag tayo pa nag-iikot sa mga paaralan, when the Vice President also went around the schools, nakikita talaga natin that not naman all, but a lot of our classrooms were really cluttered. No? Maraming mga kalat, maraming mga artwork, pero yung mga artwork na yon ay several batches ago pa, hindi sila natatanggal. So ang purpose talaga is, as you've mentioned, there are studies showing that these pieces of, well, artwork or decorations sort of take away yung attention ng ating mga mag-aaral sa kanilang mga guro. And that is why this year, sa Brigada Eskwela natin, dyan kasi nakasulat yan, we wanted bare walls para naman po maaliwalas at malinis ang ating mga classrooms.
Right, but Yusek, the thing is, so I'm a parent as well. And in my experience, kids are very visual learners, right? So visual aids, these posters can foster a positive learning environment, right? I actually brought one. This was
She
on
took
my
it from her
walls.
wall.
This is how my daughter learned numbers, right? Because it was on the wall the entire time, and she would, pass through it several times a day, and so it finally stuck, right? So these are the kinds of posters you don't want on the walls, is what you're saying,
Yes.
right? So,
Well,
naman,
things like this are
it does
not
help.
Yeah, well, ganito lang po, no? We don't disagree na importante at times yung mga visual aids, especially for the younger ones, no? But we're not naman prohibiting teachers from when they're holding classes to bring those visual aids and actually show them or post them during class. Ang gusto lang natin, pagkatapos ng class, ay matanggal ulit sila para malinis yung classroom and ready yung classroom for the next class.
So just to clarify, Yusek, lahat kailangan tanggalin. Meaning, ang matitira sa wall is nothing. Except maybe, usually, ibang schools may crucifix, di ba? Or may photo ni Mary. Photo ng president, tatanggalin rin yung mga yon.
Yes, in fact, if I may read siguro, kasi the Vice President instructed me to read na rin her statement on that, which I think part of it you've mentioned earlier. If that's okay with you, I'll just
Yes,
read her
of course.
statement. Kasi
Para
marami
malinaw.
din po talagang nagtatanong pagdating sa 2 days ago, marami nagtatanong sa atin tungkol sa picture ni PBBM, for example, or national heroes. So ang statement po niya is, here we go, no? So start quote, I know that the President, meaning President Marcos, and all the former presidents, Jose Rizal and all heroes past and present, will not at all be bothered if learners focus on their teachers, lessons, projects, and assignments. The order is what it is. Take out everything on the wall and let learners focus on their studies. Classroom and schools should be clean, orderly, and functional. Thank you, end quote.
Okay.
Right.
So even for smaller children, I believe Regina's daughter is still in baby school, so hindi pa siya nagbe-big school. Kunyari, let's say
Pre-kinder.
pre-kinder, right?
Yeah.
So let's say pre-kinder, kinder to maybe grade 1, 2, bawal pa rin.
Opo, sa atin naman kasi, again, we do not disagree na importante rin naman ang visual aids. Pero yan naman po ay pwedeng dalhin ng teacher, pwede nilang ipa-skill while class is ongoing. No? But after that, ang gusto lang natin, malinis ulit yung classroom para sa next class, hindi sila nade-distract.
So it's not completely banned.
No, it's not banned, but
Okay.
we just don't want it there the entire time because it distracts them naman from other classes. So, for example, naglabas ng visual aid yung isang teacher mo one subject ago, and then now it's a totally different topic. Minsan, o kadalasan, madidistract yung bata kasi nakatingin pa rin siya dun sa visual aid, hindi na niya napapakinggan or naiintindihan yung sinasabi ng teacher niya ngayon. So it's really more of, we're not saying teachers, huwag tayo magdala ng visual aids. Pwede naman po yun.
But I
Okay.
also have to argue with that when you say distracted yung bata, nakatingin siya sa posters while the teacher is talking. If the posters are only there during the class time, so kailan niya titignan yun, di ba? There's a study also that says wall displays help in keeping track, making connections, developing coherence with ideas, visualization, memory retention that you get to do in between classes and not during.
Oo. Well, we're not contesting all those studies because there are studies for bare walls, there are
Right,
studies that are saying that we shouldn't have bare walls. Pero at least ang posisyon ng DepEd ngayon, let's have clean classrooms, orderly classrooms, have the visual aids during class, and then pag nag-iba na tayo ng klase, dalhin natin yung visual aids, and let's leave the classroom na maaliwalas para lang sa ating mga learners, just for more focus.
Right.
Now, whether that will help or not, we'll see, no? But sa atin, nakita talaga natin, napakakalat ng ating mga classrooms. And when we start specifying ano yung pwede, ano yung hindi pwede, it gets blurred along the lines. No? So right
black
now,
and white
we
na
want to try bare walls. Again, without disagreeing that there are classes na kailangan at importante yung visual aids.
Right.
And then, tingnan po natin,
Practically
bigyan natin
all
ng
of them.
pagkakataon.
But
Math,
what will
science,
be your
English.
metric according to, I mean, what will be your way
Your
to
success.
measure that the students are being more focused in class?
Well, I'm sure the teachers will be able to see pagdating sa attention span ng ating mga learners. But really, it's really like what the Vice President said. When you enter a school, we want it to be clean, orderly, functional. That's what we're really after.
Okay,
here.
linawin lang natin further Sa loob lang to ng classroom. Of course, sa buong school, sa labas, sa hallway, pwede naman maglagay ng decoration. Kasi syempre, wala naman nagkaklase siguro sa hallway. And some schools also have labs, art rooms, and activity centers. So doon pwede.
Well, actually, isa pong issue din natin yan. No? Pag umikot kayo sa mga schools, sa hallways ng mga schools, napakarami ring nakapaskil. Advertisements, all those things. We have bulletin boards where they could post announcements. At even sa atin, nung nasa school naman tayo, yung bulletin board natin, end of the school year, tinatanggal na yan. No? Panibago ulit. At para bago yung mga announcements at hindi misleading. At if you go to our public schools, at least the weeks, last school year, makikita mo na buong school ang daming nakapaskil. So, this is one of the reasons why naglabas kami dito sa Brigada Eskwela na simplihan natin yung brigada, wag nang masyadong magarbo, gusto natin matanggal lang itong mga nakapaskil sa mga walls.
Okay. And one more clarification very quickly. Nung nagbrigada eskwela, which was last week, nasama na yan sa department order, meaning the schools were already informed as they were doing brigada eskwela, so hindi na sila babalik to scramble and take down the posters.
That's correct. Actually, itong sinasabi nating bare walls or clean classrooms, ito ay nakasulat doon sa ating guidelines for Brigada Eskwela, DepEd Order number 21. So kasama talaga siya, part and parcel siya ng ating Brigada Eskwela.
Sorry, I didn't actually hear the answer to her previous question, which is so bawal even outside of the classroom.
We want clean schools. So pag may announcements, may mga bulletin boards naman
Right.
tayo. Kumbaga may proper
So
places
no
where these
posters in the
announcements-
hallways either.
Yes, exactly.
No artwork in the laboratories. What else did you mention?
Exactly.
Yung mga
Activity room, art rooms,
art rooms.
labs.
What about art rooms?
Of course, when
What
you
about-
say art rooms, it's functional
What about
to have
home ec?
artwork,
Right.
diba? Pero dun sa mismong classrooms, wag na nating dun ipaskil. That's what
Right,
we're
so
saying.
where's the line here? Where did you draw the line?
The word functional. So when it's functional, for example, in labs, if you need to put things on the wall in labs, specifically for experiments, wala namang problema yon because kids only go there during lab time, diba? So yun lang talaga yung klase nila. Ang ayaw natin is when they're in the classrooms, they have several different classes, na distract sila because of everything that's on the wall.
I think this you might have a bit of trouble enforcing this, no? Because not all schools have specific rooms for different
Exactly.
functions,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Exactly. That's
So
what we're saying.
Some classrooms will you have multi-purpose for it.
That's exactly our point, though. Because it's multi-purpose, we don't want kids getting distracted with things that they're not supposed to be looking at while they're going to another class.
Kuwari, during math, hindi pwedeng puro science, Filipino,
Diba? It's a bit
CLE,
distracting.
civics, yeah.
Oo.
Okay.
And it's not just posters and artwork on the walls, right? If I understood it correctly, you don't want shelves, toys, cabinets.
Wala naman po tayong
Tama ba?
sinabi about shelves. No?
Okay.
Pag functional naman po siya, wala siyang problema. So ang sa atin lang talaga, it's really, kaya nga ang word is declutter, di ba? Ayaw talaga natin kasi sometimes you have shelves nga that are functional, pero yung mga books na nandun, ilang taon nang nandun, di naman ginagamit. They're just collecting dust, di ba?
Paano
So,
po yung
ganun
mga
tayo.
holidays, like Christmas, Valentine's? I mean, alam natin mga teachers, they like to make it a little bit more special. Bawal din po
wala
ba yun?
naman pong problema dyan. If they're going to have a Christmas party, meron din tayong mga guidelines dyan to keep it simple. Pwede silang mag-decorate. But right after, kailangan natin siyang tanggalin. Di lang po pwede
Also, I'm
mag-iwan.
very curious about the logic and the rationale of this order because does it have to be that extreme? Remove all.
Yeah, that's what I was
everything is a
wondering.
distraction.
I
Wala
mean,
bang middle
I feel-
ground?
yeah,
na
that's
parang
exactly
we
what I
can
was
keep
wondering as
this
well.
type because you're speaking about things about clutter, about older books, but not everything is not functional. I mean, there are things that are of use. Like for this one, for example, the poster, kailangan makita yan paulit-ulit ng bata para ma-retain yung knowledge niya.
Well, right now we're entering into a new school year. So basically nothing should be there, 'di ba? Because lahat 'yon previous school year. So tayo naman, no, we'll see how this goes. But sa atin, sa ngayon, we really want bare walls. We really want them again to just focus on their lessons, and those are the instructions of the Vice President, and those were incorporated into the Brigada Eskwela, because technically, if we were to say right now, ano yung functional and hindi, o ano yung bago, ano yung old, right now, dapat lahat luma na yan, because last school year, tapos na yung school
Was
year.
there a specific study that you did, that DepEd did, that led to this order?
Well, there are studies about bare walls.
No, I mean like going around the Philippine schools.
Well, you can see
terms
them.
of-
Actually, you can
It's
see
just
them
by
when you
observation.
go. Yes, when you go
Walang
around the
research,
schools.
walang
Definitely, when you
study.
go around the schools, makikita mo na yung clutter.
No, I mean, in terms of the thought process
Yeah.
for VP Sara, in terms of at what point did she arrive at this decision to
Well, I
issue
cannot speak.
DepEd Order 21?
I cannot speak for the Vice President in terms of her thought process. No, that's a bit personal na to her. But when we were discussing this, napansin talaga namin, and we had the same observation, na marami talagang clutter sa ating mga schools, and students do get distracted, and that's why this was issued.
But it wasn't based on any research or report that came out.
There
that
are
you had a
studies
look-
that show
Right.
that bare walls, but if there is a specific study,
That you
I cannot
referenced.
speak for the Vice President on that matter.
Okay. Why don't we shift over to another topic, because next week, as we have been talking about, magsa-start na yung school for most public schools. I think a lot of private schools have started. Of course, maglo-launch na rin, no, yung bagong decongested K-10 curriculum. How are we on that? And also on the review of the senior high curriculum. Mawawala na ba talaga yun?
Sa ngayon, klaruhin ko lang, hindi pa po nawawala yung K-12. So K-12 pa rin tayo. And it's good that you've asked that question, because I think a lot of us are confused. When we launched the K-10 curriculum a week ago, maraming lumabas na naman na balita na wala nang K-12, K-10 na. K-12 pa rin po tayo, nasa batas po yan. So hindi po natin mababago yan just as DepEd. Kailangan po magbago ng batas or magkaroon ng amendment sa batas. What we did was, nauna lang po kasi yung study sa K-10 curriculum. And since nauna siya, tapos na po yung study, and we launched our, as you mentioned, our decongested curriculum, which we are calling the Matatag curriculum. Yung senior high school naman po, we're still doing the review right now. We just started last November. So meron na tayong national task force just to review the senior high school curriculum. At we're hoping to finish it within a year's time. And once matapos yan, we will also have a similar launch to inform the public on yung nagbago. So for the Matatag curriculum, meaning the K-10 curriculum, decongested siya from 11,000 learning competencies from kinder to grade 10. Binaba po natin siya to around 3,800 learning competencies. Anong ibig sabihin nito? Yung learning competencies, yung mga kailangan na matutunan ng isang bata sa isang subject, no, or learning area, kung tawagin natin. And we've noticed na sobrang dami niya, walang enough time para ituro ng guro at ma-master ng ating mga learners. So to focus on the fundamentals, no, math, science, and really the foundational topics, yan po yung ginawa natin, decongest natin yung curriculum. But
And
this
these
won't
ones
be-
were based on studies.
Yes.
Kasi nahanapan ka namin ng studies.
Yeah,
Diba?
yeah, of
Ito
course.
naman talagang based on studies.
Of
na
course,
to.
ito ay hindi lang DepEd actually. May mga members of the academe from the private sector and experts also that helped us. This does not start with our administration. Nagsimula to 2019 pa. So nagkataon lang, natapos na natin siya noong May. And then after public consultation, we did some tweaking and we launched it last week. So, but just to clarify, the new curriculum will not be implemented this coming school year, meaning August 29. We will be implementing this next school year,
2024 to
2024 to 2025.
Okay. So for now, K-12 pa rin. And K-12
Well,
pa rin
K-12 pa naman talaga
pa
tayo.
naman talaga. Okay.
How about the senior high? When will we be reviewing the curriculum?
We are reviewing it right now.
currently.
So, mga
Ma'am
1 year
Gretchen.
pa?
We're hoping na within a year's time matapos natin siya. Because with the senior high school, there's really a need to align kung anong tinuturo natin dun sa industry demand, for example, to make them more
What are
applied.
you looking at changing? Possible.
Well, number one, we're looking at whether or not the curriculum is still relevant enough, meaning for example, for a tech voc track, sinasabi kasi natin kailangan employable pagkatapos ng K-12. Pero let's admit it, hindi yan nangyayari ngayon. No? So we want to, that's why when we do the consultations, we also do consultations with employers, industries, para malaman natin ano ba yung mga skills na hinahanap nila. At yun yung ilalagay natin sa senior high school.
Okay, so mukhang tuloy-tuloy na yung going to the next school year or this school year, 2023 to 2024. The one gusot, I think, that has been going on are the EMBO schools.
Right, but before you go to that,
sige,
I wanted to jump quickly to another topic before we run out of time, which is the confidential funds, because you have been quoted as saying that that's to prevent illicit recruitment in the schools. And I wanted you, since we've got you here, I thought, can you elaborate? Where have you seen illicit recruitment happening?
Actually, when we talk about confidential funds, no, we have to talk about the security of our learners. And I think we all have to agree that, yes, we need the mandate of DepEd primarily is to provide quality basic education. But what goes hand in hand with that would be the safety and security, welfare of our learners. Diba? That's why we have confidential funds in our budget. Para saan ba yan? We talk about abuses in our schools. For example, recruitment, illegal activities,
Recruitment
drugs.
to what?
Recruitment into local terrorist groups, recruitment into violent extremist groups. Nangyayari po yan. It's hard to probably say this. Even I myself, no? I went to a private school. So, hindi ko siya naramdaman, to be honest, until I joined the government, until I joined DepEd. Doon ko nakita yung stats, basically, ng nare-recruit. These stats will be presenting also during the budget hearing para mas maintindihan ng tao.
Right.
I don't have them with me right now. But we have information, we have gathered information, hindi lang sa recruitment, no, but even yung tinatawag nating children in conflict with the law or illegal activities. Kasi I think you were highlighting recruitment. That is definitely one of the things, but that's not the only thing that we're guarding them against.
Meaning yung mga parang pinapabenta ng drugs or mga things like that.
Yes, and in order to really have programs, no, that are targeted against these things, we need proper
Have
intelligence.
you identified the areas or regions that will be specific to that or vulnerable to that?
Sa ngayon, of course, yung mga regions na alam nating talamak sa mga violent extremism, nandyan yan. But again, I don't have the stats right now. We will be presenting that when we face
So abangan na lang
the
namin
budget
sa
hearings.
budget hearing ng DepEd. Okay, so yung tinatanong ko kanina, Yusek, yung isang gusot na lang before school starts on August 29 is, at least here in the NCR, no, is yung gulo between Makati and Taguig, just in case some parents are tuned in tonight. Ano bang nangyayari and what's the resolution? Has everything, we all know,
Well, it's
last
coming
week,
under VP Sara
VP
now.
Sara, right.
The
So,
14
but-
schools that were caught in the crossfire
Right.
of this turf war, right?
Correct.
But what are you guys, what's your plan for them?
Well, there is a Supreme Court decision. So what we need really is a good transition plan, a concrete transition plan on what's going to happen. Because we've had discussions with both LGUs. In fact, we've had discussions with both of them together. At napag-uusapan naman. And in fairness to the LGUs, they've been very cooperative with us. And for example, Taguig is saying that they are ready to take over. But again, DepEd needs to know exactly how this will be operationalized. And that's why we decided na we will assume authority over the schools. It's really nothing new because the DepEd schools naman talaga are DepEd. These public schools are DepEd schools rather. No? So hindi naman na-devolve
Paano po
ang
yung mga
public
scholarships?
schools.
Walang mawawalan? sa
Wala naman po
ganyang
tayong
transition?
scholarships dahil libre po ang public school system natin. Ngayon, ang iniisip natin is syempre, there are things being funded by the LGU, like security guards, yung ating...
yung mga
Yun ang
school
pinaka-
bags,
concern.
sapatos.
Supplies,
Yeah.
Oo. So, both LGUs are still willing to give even to this day, and they have been giving. But syempre sa atin, gusto lang natin ng maayos na transition. That's why ang sabi natin, tayo na muna ang talagang tututok, ang Office of the Secretary na muna ang tututok para hindi magkaroon ng conflicting instructions.
May
Because we
timeline
have-
yan, Yusek? Or
We actually have a transition, we formed a transition committee, dun kasama siya sa order, and bukas, in fact, will be the first meeting of this transition committee. At kasama po sa transition committee ang city legal officers of both LGUs. So, we're hoping na maayos na talaga ito magkaroon ng transition plan sa lalong madaling panahon, lalong-lalo na malapit na yung pasukan.
Yeah, exactly. So So much more to talk about, Yusek, Mike, Poa, but we're going to have to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for joining us. My daughter will be very happy to have her visual aid back.
Sa bahay naman, walang restrictions. You can post it everywhere.
I follow the DepEd curriculum.
All right, we're gonna pause for a quick one, but right after that, are you excited for the kickoff of the FIBA World Cup later this week? Well, so are we. When we return, we'll take a peek into final preps on the ground with Erica D, Deputy Director of the 2023 FIBA World Cup. Keep it here. You're still watching The Big Story here on One News. So it's not just buses and jeepneys calling for fare hikes, what with fuel prices set to go up again. Now, taxi drivers are also pushing for a higher flag down rate. Effective tomorrow, gasoline prices will increase by 1 peso and 10 centavos a liter, while diesel prices will climb by 20 centavos per liter and 70 centavos for kerosene. This marks the 7th straight week of oil price hikes attributed to production cuts by major oil-producing countries. And as a result, taxi operators are now calling on the LTFRB to increase the flag down rate to 70 pesos from the current 40 pesos. That is a 30 peso increase. Recall that in September of last year, the LTFRB wanted to add 5 pesos to the flag down rate to bring the total to 45 pesos. But taxi operators said this was not enough, so they filed a motion for reconsideration, which the agency has yet to reach a decision on.
5 pesos is not responsive. It's not reflective dun sa pangangailangan ng driver. And it's not responsive dun sa tawag ng sitwasyon.
Okay, so linawin lang natin kung bakit 30 pesos. May pinaghugutan naman sila, hindi siya like random amount. Okay, so ang sinasabi ng mga Taxi Operators Association is 900 pesos additional ang nagagastos nila because of the oil price hikes.
Per month? Is that per month, per day, per what?
I think per
Gotta be
day.
per month.
It's gotta
Per
be per
day.
day.
Oh, yeah.
It's gotta be per day. Kasi
I mean,
buong
depends.
araw kang...
Maybe
It's what you do.
within a 12-hour shift.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we know those shifts run really, really long, right? So, yung computation nila, no, explain natin further, kung maging 30 pesos yung flag down rate and 25 passengers per day on average per taxi driver, that will translate to 750 pesos. So, ma-offset kahit paano yung 900 na lugi nila sa gasolina. Sa jeeps and buses naman, yung Pasang Mazda will file a petition for 1 peso minimum fare hike for the first km, 50 centavos for every subsequent kilometer. And other transport groups have also earlier called for a 2 peso minimum fare increase. Bus operators naman, pinag-uusapan pa kung magkano ang kailangan nilang i-fare increase. So long story short, lahat ng tao humihingi ng fare increase for now.
Magbisikleta na kasi.
Ayan na.
Protect
Ayan
the
na.
bike lanes,
Totoo.
ha?
Well,
Tingnan pa yan.
Tingnan mo yung
Speaking of,
bike lanes natin.
Look at the
Panay.
picture behind you.
Gretchen.
Speaking of,
Naku.
ayan. Where
there's
is
no
your bike?
space for
Ayun pala, on
bikes.
the side. Where is your bike lane there?
Doon na
Andyan
tayo
yung
sa-
bike lane,
doon na
pero-
tayo sa, sa bus lane.
Doon na lang sa bus lane.
Okay, speaking of, the MMDA has begun apprehending motorcycle riders and drivers of four-wheel vehicles that have been using bicycle lanes along EDSA. The violation? Well, for motorcycle riders, it's disregarding traffic signs, while for drivers of four-wheel vehicles, it's obstruction. The MMDA said erring motorists will be fined 1,000 pesos for these violations, but the agency clarified that violators will only be given a warning for now, as penalties will be implemented only after a one-week information drive. Weighing in on the issue, one Rider Party List representative, Bonifacio Bosita, suggested implementing window hours for motorcycle riders to be able to use bike lanes.
Kung sasang-ayunan ng mga mambabatas at papaboran po ng ating butihing Pangulo, BBM, kung kahit bigyan na lamang po ng window hours itong mga bikers para magamit ito. But in general, dapat po mapakinabangan ito. Hindi naman po may tatanggi pag ang motorcycle riders, ang motorsiklo nagsiksikan sa mga kalsada, affected rin ang other motorists.
Here to give us their take, we have with us on the show Jobert Bolanos. He's the chairman of the Motorcycle Rights Organization. Welcome to the big story. Thanks for joining us, Jobert. I think you're on mute there.
Can't hear you?
Still can't hear you. I wonder if that's to do with our audio or your audio.
Right. Hi, Jobert. Can you hear us now? Right.
Yeah,
I wonder, I really want to hear what he's trying to tell us. I want to...
We're going to try him in the
find
background,
out.
but in any case, the point, as you were saying, Gretchen, is that yes, protect the bike lanes,
Yes.
but on the other hand, I also
taking
see it from
up
the
space.
perspective of the motorists, the motorcycle riders. Kasi
Where
naman-
do they pass?
Exactly.
Especially during rush hour.
Exactly. And there's
Where do they
now-
pass safely?
Correct.
Alam mo
This is the
kasi,
question.
I think in other countries that I have been to, like sabihin na natin sa US,
Meron silang motorcycle lane na separate.
hindi lahat. Yung iba, they ride sa kung nasan yung car. So considered silang car and they are
But those
required
are-
to follow car rules.
Right.
Right.
One big difference, though, wide roads.
One big difference, no traffic and everyone follows
Correct.
rules
Correct.
also.
Exactly.
I did try it isang time kasi nagmamadali ako, umangkas ako sa motor. And there was really no space for the motorcycle. As in, you have to go through, weave around the cars.
Yes.
I
Which is
think that's the
dangerous.
issue,
Which
eh.
is very dangerous.
That's really the issue,
Yeah.
yung yung nag-overtake sa kanan mo.
Oo.
Tapos di mo kita, di ba? Blind spot. Tapos
But
biglang,
there are also questions about this order because bakit motorcycles lang? How about the cars? Will they be fined as well?
they are going to be fined, I think, for obstruction, siguro, traffic obstruction.
And it was already illegal for cars before.
Yeah.
Hindi lang sila nahuhuli.
Hindi,
I guess. Or
actually, it
maybe
is the
nahuhuli.
same for the motorcycles. It's illegal to go into the
Yeah.
bike lanes. But now I think they're strictly enforcing it.
Right.
Given
Maybe
nga
because-
dumadami na.
Oh,
Wala na raw talagang
exactly.
espasyo yung
It's
mga
kind of
bike.
snowballed, right?
Yes.
More and more riders
But
are now plying
although,
it.
like we talked about with Senator J.V. Ejercito, parang it's running counter to what the other cities are doing who are removing bike lanes. But here in EDSA, they're still protecting them. So I wonder what the direction is.
Oh, it's one of those really tough issues, right?
It's really tough.
Everyone has
Limited space on the road?
it's limited space, number one, and everyone wants a piece of it, and we don't have the infrastructure to support everyone at the moment. So
That's
what do you do,
correct.
right? If you do window hours, it's also a bit confusing.
confusing.
How do you enforce it, right? Who enforces it? And then
then
if you
lots of
if
gray
you even
areas.
like 1 minute past the window hours, do you get caught? Do you get fined? And all these questions.
Okay.
Well, we do have a lot of
do
questions
we,
for
Do we
Robert.
have
Hopefully
Robert
we get him.
back on air?
We're gonna try.
We're gonna try to go on
Jobert
commercial
again.
break
Yes.
and
after
fix that connection with Jobert Bolanos of One Rider Party List Group. But for now, a quick break. We'll be right back.
Back to the big story. All right, we're going to try our guest again on the issue of MMDA apprehending motorcycle riders using EDSA bike lanes. We have Jobert Bolanos. He's the chairman of the Motorcycle Rights Organization. Welcome to the big story, Jobert. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yay, we have liftoff. Thank you. Right away. What is your reaction? Day one of the MMDA beginning to crack down on motorcycle riders on the bike lanes. What's been your experience and what's your general reaction to this policy?
Well, this is nothing new. This started when the pandemic took out our public transport, and the bicycle lanes were given fruition through the policy set by the IATF that was recommended to the LGUs. So in turn, the LGUs put up their own bicycle lanes so that since there are more cyclists during that time, they gave the priority to the people using bicycles for lack of public transport. Kasi during that time, cars were not allowed to carry other passengers, motorcyclists were not able to carry pillions. So what happened during the pandemic was the trend was bicycles need to be given priority also. But now that the pandemic has ended and the volume of traffic is back, and we're seeing more vehicles now than we ever did before the pandemic, we need to revisit this policy. First and foremost, we have to weigh in on things. Kasi one of the major problems that affect our economy is what kind of effect traffic has on the economy itself. It's been said that we lose billions of pesos because of traffic alone. And since the return of public transport, the return of the vehicles on the road, we're seeing Carmageddon all over again. We have to look at the numbers that we see on the road, number of cyclists versus number of motorists, not just motorcycles, but also the four-wheeled vehicles, public transport, and so on and so forth. We can also see that on our trains, our MRT and LRT, the volume of people that are going back to taking the commute. And then we have to weigh in whether or not it's helping the flow of traffic. But looking at it at a different perspective outside of the pandemic, the situation is really a problem of flow and public road discipline. Yan ang kulang na kulang kasi sa atin, especially here in this country with our Filipino drivers and riders and cyclists. What we lack is discipline. And the root cause of this problem is, number one, our enforcement is not that strong. If you look at other countries, there's very little traffic enforcement because everybody is afraid of getting apprehended because they have a very good apprehension system and enforcement system. And then we have also very strict licensing in other countries, wherein here in the Philippines, it's so easy to get a license, even with the new policies we put in place, like the examinations that we have to take, the 15-hour theoretical course that we have to take. It's still easy to get a license, legally or illegally. And then we have also a problem when it comes to having the use of the roads as part of our curriculum. Kulang din sa atin yan eh. We're the only modern country who utilizes technology, but still in our curriculum, we don't see part of our curriculum yung paggamit ng sasakyan sa kalsada. So we have to focus more on the root causes. These things are a band-aid solution, just like the motorcycle lane, which is also a band-aid solution. But when you remove the band-aid, the wound is still there. It's still prevalent. It's still fresh. You don't remove a problem or a wound with just a band-aid. You have to focus on the root cause. And these are the root causes that we have been telling government over and over again. And we're willing to help out because discipline is a shared responsibility. It's not just the riders, it's not just the four-wheeled vehicles, it's not just the public transport, it's also the commuters, it's also the cyclists.
Right, I totally agree with you and I like what you said, but given that you yourself are indoctrinated, or at least with the group of motorcycle riders, and you said you guys are willing to help, can you explain some more what kind of measures you're looking at least within the riding community, to enforce this discipline that we are so sorely lacking?
Well, number one, we have to make sure that our laws are up to date. Okay, we are still using a 1964 base law that does not coincide with today's technology. For example, e-bicycles or e-tricycles, they're not being registered when they're supposed to. It's because we lack the pertinent laws to fill in the gaps. So we have to first fix the laws. Second, we have to teach enforcement the proper implementation and the proper interpretation of these laws. There are confusion with laws as we speak. For example, the use of chinelas, basic rules and regulations like turning left here or turning right there. These are things that, different LGUs, different provinces, our LTO, our PNP have a different perspective or a different interpretation of the laws. So before we can implement something, we have to make sure that we are implementing the existing laws properly.
Jobert, I just wanted to ask and clarify. So you're saying that you are against this the apprehension of motorcycles entering the bike lane, that government should take a look if the people are still riding bikes along that main thoroughfare. Are we getting it right?
Now, let me make one thing clear. The law is the law. As harsh as it seems, the law is the law. But right now, we have to make our laws adaptable to the situation at hand. So the bicycle lanes came out because of the pandemic. Now that the pandemic is over and the volume of traffic is here, we need to revisit this policy. We're looking at a shared bicycle lane with the bicycles given right of way kasi syempre they're the most vulnerable between motorcycles and bicycles. But look at the sheer volume during rush hour. We can't even put in the motorcycle lane and implement the motorcycle lane properly, even with Commonwealth, which has 5 or 6 lanes. So what more on EDSA na meron ng sariling carousel lane ang buses, you have 3 lanes left for the private vehicles and the motorcycles, and you have that other space that can still be utilized for a 4th lane but is now being utilized by bicycles. And right now, we have to also consider, ilan ba yung bisikleta nung pandemic, ilan ang bisikleta ngayon?
Well, we're going to have to leave that there for now and observe how the MMDA goes about this policy. But thank you so much for joining us, Jobert Bulanos, Chairman of the Motorcycle Rights Organization. We'll take another quick break, but right after that, the big story will return. Stay with us. Back. You are still watching the big story here on One News.
So what's next? The FIBA World Cup, of course, it's just 4 days to go before the 2023 FIBA World Cup starts. Every day this week, more teams will continue to arrive in Manila ahead of the tournament. Among them is Angola, who landed past 6 in the evening last Saturday. Bannered by Atlanta Hawks big man Bruno Fernando, the 41st ranked Angola team will face the 40th ranked Gilas Pilipinas in Group A on August 27. Aside from Angola, Egypt and Mexico have also landed over the weekend. Mexico will be Gilas' last tune-up assignment before the World Cup, which is happening right now. Meanwhile, last night, several FIBA officials were also welcomed in the country, like Executive Committee member Ingo Weiss from Germany. So far, Weiss had nothing but praises for the local organizers for the smooth implementation of the event so far.
I think it will be a great World Cup, and it should be one of the best World Cup we ever had with FIBA.
Sobrang exciting. So may mga tune-up games pa talaga this week, no, Gretch? Bago mag-open. Tonight.
Mexico and Philippines,
And then
tama?
we're waiting for the final lineup, final 12 lineup from Coach Chot. Pero kanina nakita na natin yung venue, no? We saw several photos.
I think we have the photos.
And they all look so good that we had a difficult time telling if it was Philippine Arena, Araneta Coliseum, or
That was a good pick,
Arena. Ito Philippine Arena
Philippine
ito.
Arena
Kasi
yan.
medyo malawak
Yung
siya.
ano,
malapit
parang
siya.
medyo yung flag red, white, and
Yeah,
green.
but I was saying also, I think they have
This is definitely
Kasi
Philippine
parang
Arena.
ano siya
Look how big
football
it is.
stadium
Yeah.
siya Tapos kalahati yung ginamit for the basketball
And again, it
court.
has seating capacity of 50,000.
And we're aiming to break the record
of 33,000.
32,
33 something.
30 plus.
Which I think will be easy.
33, 34.
And then we also
Well,
have
that's why they're saying, I think I saw a poster that says there's free fast food.
Oh, really?
free bus
transportation.
rides to the venues,
Yeah,
to the arena, to Araneta Coliseum.
Single game tickets are being
MOA.
sold as well.
Yes, but yung favorite ko is My gosh, may mga traffic simulation to and from the hotel rooms and venues. Kasi for me, that's the stressful part.
That's
It's a
true.
real
That's
problem
it's the part.
here.
It's
You
the
have
parking.
to.
That's why
Yes.
si Doc Andy Hitan, 'di ba, sinabi niya,
Oo.
para di ka malasin on that day.
Yung
Leave
feng shui
early.
feng shui expert natin.
At syempre, kanina po namin sinasabi na holiday today. It is August 21, Ninoy Aquino Day. And our big picture tonight is in theme. This was a scene 40 years ago today, on August 21, 1983, when Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr. was fatally shot on the tarmac of the then Manila International Airport as he exited the plane that brought him home. Aquino's assassination is credited with transforming the opposition to the Marcos regime from a small, isolated effort into a national movement. Earlier today, people gathered and offered flowers over at the Terminal 1 of the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. Aquino's famous words will be forever etched in Philippine history, which is, of course, the Filipino is worth dying for. Ito guys, trivia. Rather surprising and important move actually from President Bongbong Marcos during Ninoy Aquino Day. This is his second Ninoy Aquino Day as President of the Philippines. And today, he said in a statement that he stands with all Filipinos worldwide in commemorating Ninoy Aquino Day. He also called to transcend political barriers that hamper us from securing the comprehensive welfare and advancement of our beloved people. Marcos Jr. also called on Filipinos to develop a Philippines where personal biases fade. He likewise maintained the need to build a more inclusive and progressive country.
It's a pretty nice statement.
It is.
If I recall, last year we didn't hear from the
Yes.
president, and so getting
diba?
one this year
It's a 180 actually
Yeah.
from last year. Kaya ko sinabi.
maybe it's
second.
because it's the 40th anniversary of Ninoy getting assassinated.
Maybe. Where did you get that?
Maybe he was readier to speak out on it.
Yeah, also.
It took him time.
But it does resonate with his campaign slogan.
Unity, right?
All right, that's it for the show tonight.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.